Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are like me, you might just be an avid follower of Mick and Dan on That Pedal Show. And I certainly am. And to be honest, I've been following that show since around about 2017. And I've learnt a lot about tone, signal path, guitar through cables, effects pedals, through to amplification like the Laney L20H at the back of the room over here. So periodically, Mick and Dan do release experience days. They are hugely popular, highly in demand, and it's very difficult to get a ticket. So on the 17th of July 2024, I managed to get a ticket, and today's video is just a walk through the actual day with Dan and Mick at That Pedal Show. One of the emails that they do send through once you've completed all your sort of registration documents and passwords and things is that they send you a useful email which is all about accommodation in the area. So within the list of accommodation that Dan and Mick sent out, there's one that caught my eye in particular, which was called The Place to Stay. I liked it because it caught my eye because it's a bit of a period property, it's in a rural environment, and I do like that. But I can relate to that because I live in a similar kind of location. It's owned by a lovely lady called Joss. She's an absolute brilliant hostess, and I love these old quirky sort of buildings. Now, the other interesting thing is that Joss also owns the White Hart Inn pub, which is literally a 5-minute walk down the road in the village. So my intention was to arrive Thursday evening, have the evening meal, stay overnight in the accommodation and be at That Pedal Show for the workshop first thing Friday morning. Now, if you do book your accommodation with Joss through That Pedal Show, you do get a bit of a discount. So, and I'll just tell you how much it was for me. So just give you a little bit of an idea. I got £10 off, and my overnight accommodation with a full breakfast and everything in the morning was £118. So it's all booked. And you then, as you get nearer to the date, you then receive further information from That Pedal Show saying, look, your date's only 2 weeks away. They give you an idea of what to bring and what not to bring. So basically it said, bring your guitars, bring your pedal boards, but please leave your amplification at home. So my approach was, right, so what do I want from the day? And what do I need to take with me? Now, so I thought I'll take my pedal board anyway, albeit it's not changed in any way for the last few years that I've been using it. I'm fairly happy with it, and I keep thinking I might just make some modifications to it, but I haven't yet. And I thought, what guitar shall I take with me? Now, I'm sat here with me Firebird 7. It's a 2006. It's not a custom shop. It's just an American Gibson Firebird, but it's got a unique sort of story about it. And if you're not familiar with this channel and you've just dropped in, this was owned by Paul Hemmings from the Liverpool band called The Lars, who wrote There She Goes Again. And I bought this a few years ago, and I love the look of it, the visual theatre. And we did a bit of a video recently whereby we had new pickups fitted to the guitar by Carl Longbottom, who's a brilliant luthier in Yorkshire, and he's done a full setup on it. You can catch that video, and you can also see that we put Sunbird pickups in the guitar because we're after improving the tone of the guitar. And I thought, do you know what? If there's one guitar I'm going to take with me, it has to be this. So on the Thursday, I've got the car loaded up, and at 11 a.m, I've set off on my journey to Somerset, and about 4:30 p.m. that afternoon, I arrived at the accommodation. So got booked into the accommodation, got shown to my room. The room was really nice, guys. Lovely shower in there, lovely bit of a bathroom, lovely bed, sash windows. I love all that kind of thing. I'm in the countryside, all the birds are singing. I'm thinking, I now need to make tracks and get down to the pub for my evening meal at 7 o'clock. And it was now, say, 20 to 7. I thought, right, I'll just go and freshen up. And I thought, oh, bugger. I'd only gone and left my toothbrush at home and toothpaste. Like, oh, that's a nightmare. So I thought, right, jumped into the car, drove about a mile or two, bought some toothpaste, a toothbrush, and I thought, it's now approaching 7 o'clock, so just drove straight to the pub, had my meal, which was a beautiful venison pie. If you get a chance, guys, and you do go there and you stay at the accommodation I stayed at, you've got to try the venison pie. So moving on to Friday morning, I knew that I needed to be at That Pedal Show at 9:30 a.m, which was about a couple of minutes away, walking, if you will. So I thought I'd get up bright and early. I'll have my breakfast. I had a lovely scrambled egg on toast and other bits and pieces, and I was really sort of set up for the day. And then I did my 1-minute drive to the TPS headquarters. And what I did see driving into their lovely courtyard was It looks like an old kind of stable building or something, but like a H shape. And I could see Mick Taylor at their doorway. And as I drove in, he sort of popped out and I said, yeah, it's Kev Berry from Blackpool. Oh, yeah, come on, Kev, just park your car over there and come on in. So I did. So I left the Firebird in the car, pedalboard stayed in the boot, and I just went in. First impression was, it was an amazing facility. It really was. It was almost like a coffee shop. Nice big sort of table for 6 people in front of you as you sort of go in. And to the right, you've got a coffee bar. Brilliant place, how they've set it up. And it really was sort of welcoming. It was almost like going to like Costa Coffee or something like that. Really, really nice. And over to your left, there's like another sort of bar area, which behind it had loads of sort of shelving with effects pedals on it. And I can only assume that is where Dan does his pedal board build. Other visitors were dropping in and we're all having a nice brew, nice bits of introductions, a bit of a chat and stuff. So at 10 o'clock we did what was called a group introduction. So within the group discussion, we all took turns to introduce ourselves, talked about our musical kind of journey, what inspired us when we were sort of growing up and what we wanted from the day individually. Now, my needs were a little bit different than other people's kind of needs. And for me, just talking about me personally, I took the Hummingbird with me and I just wanted a fresh set of eyes on this guitar in terms of looking at its tone and what it offers. It can be quite harsh, it can sound a little bit thin, and equally it can be a little bit underpowered at the same time too, particularly on the bridge pickup there. And I thought if Mick and Dan can have a bit of a play on it and look at tone, and I want to play this more because again, it's a beautiful guitar and we spent quite a lot of money on it. I just want them to basically give me the confidence in saying, yeah, it's a nice guitar, Kev. So 10:45 came along and it was now time to have a tour of the TPS facility. And I've got to say, guys, really impressed. So when we walk in from the room that we've all had our meet and greet and the introduction in, it was then we walked into the other parts of the facility, whereby the first room was like a big sort of lounge, if you will, whereby it's got a big sort of settee in it, nicely decorated, nice features, big Fender headstock table in there. And that's where Dan films his gig rig vlogs in there. Anyway, what I did find interesting was they had Mick Taylor's editing room, which comprised of a desk, a nice big comfy sort of office chair, 3 screens, desktop computer and stuff. And I found it quite interesting, being a little bit of a YouTube video editor fanatic myself, how he does his editing, what software does he use. I think he uses Adobe Premiere. And so that was quite interesting. Then moving along to, like, say, for example, the live room, which you see on the TPS channel, we went in there and it wasn't smaller than I thought, but it was a little bit of a different shape. But what did catch my eye is the lighting inside the room when you walk in is quite significantly different than the lighting that you see on your TV or your desktop. And I thought, that's a bit interesting. What happened when we're in their live room? Mick had his live rig, wet and dry setup. Dan had his matchless rig set up in wet and dry as well. And both Mick and Dan talked about their rigs, their forthcoming projects in little bands and stuff. And they gave us a complete demo of their gear. And I thought, oh, this is really good because, and this is the important bit, guys, is what you see and hear on TPS is very good, but you've got to be in the room to really feel it. And it was worth the experience of just actually standing in front of Mick or Dan's amplification and just feeling that movement of air. And that was just incredible. So they went through their sort of wet and dry mixes, how they build their tones and how they shape their sounds and the methods in which they do that. I thought that was really good. So we finished that, and then at 12 o'clock, lunch had arrived. So as part of your sort of your fee that you pay for the workshop day, lunch is included. The coffee machine was always on, guys, so I was having brew after brew after brew. It was fantastic. So at 1 p.m. after lunch, we were then split up into 2 groups. Group A went into the live room where they'd be able to take their guitars, pedal boards, and build and shape their tone in Dan and Mick's studio. So that was done by Mick Taylor. I stayed with Dan and the other members of my group to look at pedal boards and guitars and stuff. So, and what was interesting was that Dan said, right, go and get your gear out of your cars. So we did. And when I came back in, Dan stood at his pedal board bar, and there's a pedal board with all gig rig stuff, and I thought, that's a really good pedal board. It's obviously Dan's that. And it wasn't. It was one of the guys who brought their pedal boards along, and it just looked amazing. And I thought, there's a lot of time invested in that and a lot of money as well. And I thought it was Dan's rig, but it wasn't. It was one of the guests. I thought, that's just amazing. And it sounded great. Now, the good thing is that the whole purpose of this is to basically sort of look at your pedal board. And in that particular case there's a bit of a tone issue on one of the pedals, and the signal path it takes through the Gig Rig G3 from the guitar through to the amplifier. So basically, it was a little bit of a tutorial between Dan and one of the guests to basically get it working right, and with a couple of sort of flicks of one or two sort of buttons and switches within G3, sorted straight away, absolutely brilliant. So it came to my time, so I popped my pedal board on Dan's bar area in front of him, and I said, right, I'll just get the Hummingbird out of the case. And as I popped out of the case, Dan went, wow, that looks amazing. And I said, right, Dan, you need to have a bit of a play of this. I need a bit of a second opinion on tone. So Dan plugged it into the pedal board, into the AC15, and he was playing it for some time, and he was making some really good tones. And I thought, I stood away from it. I thought, that's sounding really good, is that? That's going through my pedal board into a clean channel on an amp. What am I worried about? And Dan, after he finished, he said, Kev, if you ever do think about selling that guitar, I want first refusal. So we now got through that part of the afternoon where it was now our time to go into the live room with Mick Taylor. So I decided I'm going to leave my pedal board out of it. So my intention was really just to put this guitar through one of the rigs in the live room, either Mick's or Dan's, at volume to see what it could offer me. And do you know what? I'm glad I did, because when I went in there, which is the room you see on TV, guys, so I'm sat on one of those stools they have, Mick said, right, Kev, what are your thoughts on this guitar? Well, it's underpowered, comparison to a Les Paul or even my Black Strat or whatever. I said, it can sound a bit thin as well. I said, I just need a little bit of guidance in getting the best out of it. So what we did was we fired up Mick's rig, and we basically ended up playing it quite loud, probably about just short of 100 dB. And he said, do you know what, Kev? He says, it is harsh. He said, just do this. He said, turn that bridge tone down to about 5 and see what you think. And I did. And I was playing some power chords and a bit of noodling and stuff. And the guys in the front said, that is a transformation. This was the other visitor. They said, that's a winner. It sounds great. And I'm glad that I've got Mick and the other people on the actual course saying, do you know what? That sounds great. And that was all by just adjusting the tone pot there, which I have done previously, guys. But it's nice to hear it from other people, because you can go down the rabbit hole of pickups, effects pedals, this, that and the other, and you can get sort of focused in one direction, but sometimes you need a second opinion or a third and fourth. And I'm glad that I did that, because it's so simple that this guitar now sounds great. And I'll just give you a little bit of an idea. So if I was to basically just put on the bridge pickup and put the tone control at 10, so just play a nice sort of A with a, you can hear the top. I'm not sure how it's going to come through, but where I'm sat at the minute, it sounds a little bit spiky. And in bringing that volume pot down to 5, it sounds a bit like this. And for me, that was like a moment of revelation. I was thinking, I've been overcomplicating this in my mind about how to sort this thing out. And Mick has basically said, just turn your tone down. And I thank Mick for that, and equally Dan for giving me the confidence to use this guitar more and more because of what it is, how it looks, and now how it sounds. It's never going to sound like a Les Paul. It's never going to sound like a Strat. It's always going to sound like a Firebird. But if we can just sort of fatten the tone up just a little bit and take that top end off and give it a little bit more power, then it'll be somewhere where I want it to be. So what I have done here, guys, just give you a little bit of an idea. I've got a blues driver set up on the pedal board at the minute, and the level setting is at midday. The tone is at midday, so I've not touched that. And I've just added around about sort of 25% of gain, so it's 9 AM on the gain level on the blues driver. So we just go from what you've just heard. So if I dig in, I get a bit of breakup, but if I put the blues driver on, let's have a listen to that. Just knock that off. And that's where we are. So I'm really happy with the guitar. So we finished the actual sort of loud room bit, and then the other guys came in from their pedal board session, and we basically rounded the day off with lots of photographs and bits and pieces, shaking hands and all the rest of it. I loaded my car up, and at 6:30 that day, I was setting off back to Blackpool, and I did a quick sort of 4-hour drive non-stop back to Blackpool, and I was back home for about 10:30. So in conclusion, what did I think? Well, to be honest, if I just get my notes, it cost me £295 for the day. It cost me £118 for the accommodation. I had an evening meal which I think cost like £20 on the Thursday night, and I think I spent probably around about £50 in fuel. And would you sort of say, was it worth it? Well, to be honest, my approach was this. If I could pick up one golden nugget of information from Dan and Mick during the course of that day, then for me, it was very worthwhile. So would I recommend it to you guys? Well, yes, I would. It doesn't matter what level or ability you are. They cater the day for everybody's experience, no matter what it is. And I would actually give it 10 out of 10 because I just loved it. I really did. For me, the bottom line is I'm keeping this guitar. Dan and Mick have now heard it and played it and stuff, and I love it to bits, I really do. So, and that's where I am. So if you've enjoyed this edition of Gigs and Guitars, please like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time for another fantastic edition of Gigs and Guitars. Bye now.